Oh, what have we just seen?
No idea.
This is the 8-9 combo, and this is the Test match post-mortem. Insert winning try here. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones, and mate, I still do not know what to say after Australia's incredible performance at Twickenham in London.
I'm deaf. I'm dumb. I was in a pub full of South Africans, and so there was not one person who wanted England to win. And then the Scottish hosts, I'm sure, did not as well. And it reminded me, because I was in Dublin watching two of the best teams in the world play, and it was kind of a dull affair in some ways because each one negated the other one's strengths and no one could thrive. In this match, you had sort of a struggling England, who's I think lost 4 or 5 in a row, and then the Wallabies with their well-known travails, and they just went hammer and tongs. At some parts of it were incredibly loose, and I'm sure frustrating for either set of fans. Like, why are we trying to lose this match? They probably said to themselves. But it conspired to make one of the great spectacles, one of the great matches I've watched in ages, because I literally had no idea what would happen in the next minute. It just seemed like whatever, Maro Itoje would do something incredible, and then he would stuff up the next one. And then, every player, there was no player immune from mistakes. And also, it seemed like everyone had big plays.
Yeah. I saw a social post, probably 15 minutes to go, and I can't remember who it was, and apologies if it was you. It just said, well, I did not have England-Australia being a much better game than Ireland-New Zealand on my dance card. That's a great point. It's you're in Edinburgh, mate. Obviously, as you say, we're back with our immediate thoughts on this incredible comeback win from the Wallabies, beating England 42-37 at Twickenham. Their first win at Twickenham since the 2015 Rugby World Cup, and I think only the second win in their last 9 or 10 tests at Twickenham as well. So it's a win for the ages. We'll cover off New Zealand's impressive 23-13 win over Ireland in Dublin last night as well to kick off the second week of the Autumn Nations series. Let's try and get into it. My heart's still racing, mate. I don't know. I can't believe what I've just seen. I really can't believe what I've just seen. So let's try and get into it with our 5-word headline after that. Fire away. What have you got for me?
I've got 2 that are so good I don't know how to pick one. But one is offload the damn chariot. Because that chariot was offloaded in a hurry by everyone. Yeah. Iketal in the end upstaged Joseph. But my other headline was probably the one that we're going to go with, in my opinion, which is Joseph and his Technicolour dream debut. Because everyone was expecting him to come undone and fail, and I'm sure there were a few things he overran, and there was he didn't know what to do with a rock. Sure, I get that, but in just moments of absolute brilliance, like soaring into the air and doing a catch and then a backflip a la NBA tip-off in Wilt Chamberlain or something. It was actually very fun to watch him work his way through the match.
Was.
Everyone, no one's going to begrudge a young kid like that, get on the stage. It might not have worked against a different team, but in this kind of match, 43-37, bring on Joseph.
Yeah. Just the 80 points for the game. At some point, someone's going to have to sit him down and go, Test rugby is not always like this.
He might never play another test like that.
No. You could actually retire from rugby right now, and you'd be pretty happy. I was going to go down the full hyperbole route, and you might have usurped me already. And I was just going to go with greatest win in rugby history.
I love the euphoria we feel, as well as you've had plenty of your fair share of heartache in the last 2 years. So I can imagine at this point it's just you cannot even believe what you just saw.
It's just buzzing. I don't know how I'm going to try and get some sleep after we finish recording this. What worked very, very well for the Wallabies tonight?
Ooh, we got a lot of things to talk about here.
Yeah.
Primarily it was that they never really let England be comfortable. There were a few moments in that game where I thought, okay, now England's going to run away with it, or they're going to solidify. But I think, mostly it was, the mentality of it. The second thing, and I have to say, this may not be true, but it's my impression. I wrote down, and at some point I said, who looks fitter? And I said the Wallabies. And there were two moments in particular that I captured, which was kick-throughs, a break by Tom Wright, who was Mr. Break tonight.
He was phenomenal.
But then he did something smart, which he towed it instead of dying with the ball in the break. He towed it ahead. And in both cases that I remember, it was McWright and Wilson and guys like that got to the ball, along with backs, English backs and Wallaby backs. And that put them in such an advantage if they had these, loose trios. The other thing I wrote down was that, what was my quote? I said, every shoulder is a soft shoulder to Bobby Valentini. Because it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Most people have to position themselves. He was just unbelievable.
They absorbed, like it was 15-3 after 20 minutes, and I'm sitting here in my chair at 2:30 in the morning on the Australian East Coast. I'm thinking, this could get ugly. I had the conscious thought, this could get ugly. And then Tom Wright scores his try only 6 or 7 minutes later. Oh, okay. All right. And then they convert it. Smith kicks another penalty. And then Harry Wilson scored. Jake Gordon went off with blood. Harry Wilson scored soon after. Conversion penalty. Australia leading at halftime. Thinking, I'm still actually not quite sure how this has happened, but there's been a massive momentum shift. England never really launched a proper blitz defense after that, and they lost all their speed in attack as well. It was like all the speed in the game was played in that first 20 minutes, and after that, it just became a matter of who can outlast who's got the most patience, who can fire the last shot, and it was just phenomenal. What I love about Australia having absorbed that first 20, 25 minutes is they started using the inside ball. They started, who you thought was carrying, lining up to carry, just got a second pass away. And that got them an extra meter, an extra 2 meters, an extra 3 meters. And England were just on the back foot in defense. And that's why I say they never really launched a strong blitz defense after that point in the game. I mean, full credit to Joe Schmidt, to Laurie Fisher, Jeff Parling, the whole Wallabies coaching team, because it felt like they knew what was coming, and if they could just get through that initial stage, they had the plan to try and open England up, and it worked. It worked an absolute treat.
Yeah, so there were some things like, in contrast to the night before, where I felt like fundamentals beat a team trying to be too skilled in Ireland. In this case, I almost felt like the exceptional skills of the Wallabies, man for man, triumphed over some set piece problems. So there were problems at the scrum. Taniela Tupou was not making Ben O'Keefe happy. There were problems in the line out, and there were problems in some sort of structural senses around the ruck. But I have written down here that Angus Bell, Nick Frost, Harry Wilson.
He was great.
Let's see. There were some people who were doing hand skills, some forwards who were doing hand skills. Yeah. And the fact that you had 12 or 13 guys who could handle that well versus about 7 or 8 on the English side was one thing. The second thing is, so England did 2 reactions to stuffing up the game against New Zealand. One was they shifted Slade and Ollie Lawrence around. And I felt like all night that actually made them confused on their blitz.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you, I wrote down that they stopped doing a blitz. And also on the try where we went up, where it was 15, no, like where the Wallabies clawed back from 15-3 to 15-10. It was Slade who looked like the lead convert. He didn't know where he was going. And I looked it back to make sure. And I said, sure enough, when you take someone in one position and then you switch them just a week later with your same midfielder, it does probably mess up your brain. And he didn't know where he's supposed to be. So there was that. The second thing they shifted was they left Marcus Smith on when they brought George forward. I thought, oh my God, look at that, because Marcus Smith anyone watching that has got to love Marcus Smith as a rugby player. But George Ford still managed to stuff it up, even though he wasn't kicking, by throwing the ball to ground. I was like,
I feel like I didn't see George Ford. Apart from when he ran on, the shot went straight to Marcus Smith going back to fullback. And I don't really have a memory of George Ford being involved in the game after that. I'm sure he was, but
no, he messed up he's the one who grossed the ball that Kellaway got to run away from score. That was Ford's mistake.
That was Ford's pass behind Ollie Lawrence, wasn't it? Yeah.
He had to bullet it, and instead he softed it. And in the end, we saw Andrew Kellaway, who's our friend, running for the try line, running away from the poles because he knew he needed that.
I'm just going, go, Kills. Yes, change direction. Keep going. Just keep going.
I wanted him to keep running to the flag and think, you know what, it doesn't really matter, 33, 35. Just use up as much clock as possible. Like, run in circles. At that time, at that point, the game had descended into madness. And, on the very next thing, Mario Itoje goes and scores. And then you think, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And then Marcus Smith's kick, he shaves it upright. Yeah. You saw Jamie George on the sideline, and he was like, "No!" And so I just didn't know. I think if they kept playing for another 10 minutes, it would have been 75-73, and who knows what it won.
Yeah, exactly. I think Australia, Lolasio's game tonight was very much a case of get it wide. He was playing. He kicked well. He didn't really have to lead the attack too much because the leading of the attack was going to be done out wide. And Ikitau was fantastic at inside center. Suaalii. I'm reticent to overhype him. All right. So the one thing I'll say about Joseph Suaalii tonight in this game is it did not look like that was his first game of rugby in 4 years. That's the best thing I can say about him. He looks like a rugby player.
And because it was the style of game, 42-37 that we saw, I think it was better. If he was playing in a 10-8, and it was all about the decisions. When I watched him closely, as we all probably did, and I saw that when it was ruck time or when it was third phase, fourth phase, he did have to think. And I think all credit to him.
He had to think about his ball placement too. I noticed you could see that.
But that being said, he didn't stuff it up either, and so I think maybe it was good because I thought maybe he would come in with too much hype and then feel like I have to win the whole match, and he didn't do that. I thought Tom Wright was actually even better. I thought Tom Wright made so many mini breaks that it completely fouled up English system. They didn't know where to go because he was literally making breaks from his own 15-meter line for no reason. I don't know why he was even doing. He would just step someone for fun.
I said it in our chat group. All the detail that I got about Tom Wright's game from having coffee and lunch with Stephen Larkham 2 weeks ago when I wrote that RugbyPass article just came flooding back to me. Like not even so much flooding back to me, but it was just there to see, and it was so good to see him have that kind of game at international level because he so many of the headlines in Australia will be about Suaalii's debut, and he was very, very good. I am trying to underplay it. He was very, very good, but Ikitau was fantastic. Wright was phenomenal. Kellaway was really, really good on the wing. Jake Gordon's service to Lolasio and to Wider was great. The back row was fantastic. Jeremy Williams. I don't think I can actually pick, aside from saying I don't know that Taniela Tupou had the best night, and not just in scrum. I think some of his decision-making around the field wasn't great. Aside from him, I don't think there was a bad Australian player on the field. And I can't think of the last time I've said that about the Wallabies.
Well, and also England was 5-1 favourites. They clearly were huge favourites. So we're grading on a curve in a way because you wouldn't ever say that giving up 37 points to England is good. But from where we've seen the Wallabies come from, was exceptional. And so everyone is going to be so benefited by that. I think Harry Wilson's captaincy was also on good display.
Really good.
I suppose maybe the bench wasn't quite as good this time around as it has been in the past. I didn't really think our friend LSL had a great time out there. He made a few mistakes. Yeah. And I thought also there was a bit
Max
of a
Jorgensen
wobble.
Was good. Made some good breaks and obviously scores the winning try.
Right, but if I was just trying to nitpick and find something, it would be, letting England back in at the very, very end was regrettable because it looked for all the world that we'd stuffed it up again. So interestingly enough, just having raw speed on the edge, that try was made by Ikitau, but just having someone who can take it to the house, the rudimentary requirement of wingers in clubs everywhere, in schools everywhere, and everywhere we ever played rugby, it was like, oh, you're the quick guy, you could play wing. It was nice because once that when the offload was made, the magic offload, you knew it was a try. Like you didn't have to worry. You go, I'm not sure you can get there.
And I'm not sure what it was like. So in Australia, we had Australian commentary for Stan Sport, and they're obviously calling it from a studio in Sydney, and it was clear to them in their commentary, as we've heard at the top, it was clear to them that they didn't realise that Jorgensen actually had a clear run to the line. I think that, and I was too, expecting a sweeper defender at the back there. Like when he made the break, it still felt like he had one to beat, but suddenly realised, oh, there's actually no one in front of him, and he's got the arm up and he's diving and. I still don't really know where the space come from. And it was just a phenomenal ballsy play. That was, very obviously the best performance under Joe Schmidt, but I would say that's probably the best Wallabies performance in easily the last 2 years and maybe even the last 3 or 4. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And we don't really need to go into, who'll learn what from this game, because the confidence now Australia goes forward into Wales, Scotland, Ireland from here is just going to be, they've never experienced it before. They will be giddy all week. And that's just so good. I'm just so happy for them. We'll hear from Joe Schmidt in just a second, mate, because I have got that clipped up ready to go. What didn't go so well for England apart from, you've touched on the midfield swap already?
So I was on the English comms. It was brutal. They sincerely hated this even when they were winning. They thought it was disgustingly bad because basic errors by seasoned players kept giving the Wallabies pathway back in. Lapses on defense, like I said, Slade looking like he was playing his first union game several times. But also beyond that, kicks to touch when they had penalties, instead of getting to 5 meters out, being 25 meters out. Maybe the lack of belief, and then there was definitely the noticing of some fitness issues. I think Finn Baxter, the young prop, they're not too sold on him.
The 12-year-old.
You've got the incredibly old man, and then you've got the young boy, and they don't like that trotting on. I think they were frustrated by the inability for someone to not just smash Joseph. Like, how can a guy walk on and be given that kind of ride? They just felt like the stronger teams, the French, the South Africans, would have, given the young man a different welcome.
And maybe just on that, maybe that's actually why Schmidt threw him in, because he maybe he knew that England wouldn't give him the sort of hard night that Ireland or New Zealand or South Africa or France would. Maybe.
Maybe.
Continue.
The mistakes like Ben Earl picking up at the base on a scrum, attacking scrum when he didn't need to, and then running slide home
and getting smashed into touch.
When all they needed was actually the one-on-one. It's something he does at Northampton all the time, and he likes the one-on-ones. And slide home can take his man. He didn't need Earl with his lame brain and his screaming ways, getting up, tripping, scrambling, running diagonally to the flag, and then trying to give the wing something to do. So there are moments like that where they don't look like a smart team. And I think that, and they came within a whisker anyway of overcoming that. They're also bemoaning the fact that they have to bring on George Ford. Yes, I know that it ended up being that Marcus stayed on, but it just felt like to the commentators here, like, why are we doing that? Why are we being nice to George Ford when clearly we need to move on? And there's other attacking players. And with the new escort, no guard, Shepherd, smash the catcher, a guy like, what's the guy's name? That used to be Freddie
Stewart.
Freddie Stewart used to be rule the skies. Bring him back in because he can take the hit, and now everyone gets hit. And so when you have George Ford coming to take those late in the game, it didn't fill in with confidence. And you have Marcus Smith, a proper 10, having just fall back and take those. Probably they did talk about the lack of a guard so that more charge downs are possible. And the commentators here also were talking a lot about the politics now of this zone that the referees want to see around the drop zone of the kick. And not just changing a line.
We heard again tonight,
but also kind of saying a 5-meter radius should be free, which means the game is all about smashing the catcher now. The catcher's got to come down with it, and then you time it because there's no one to dodge. Beyond that, they were crushed because there was a moment. Where was that moment? Where Maro Itoje scores. It's sort of a 1, 2, 3, bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
And I wrote down, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Because I thought, but we won this. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, we lost it. And it was 35-all. He strokes it through by a whisker, and then that's when the English commentators they were just so gutted. They couldn't believe that there was a scrum reset. They just could not believe that they couldn't put the game to bed. Yeah. So to me, it was very exciting to hear them be so sad. Like I took great joy out of the English commentators' angst.
I got a message from a mate. Is in the second half, and it just said something along the lines of looking forward to Ben Young's podcast this week.
Oh, man.
I can't wait to hear what Dan Cole says to him. I really can't. Let's hear from Joe Schmidt, mate. He was absolutely beaming when he spoke post-match here. And hello, YouTube. You unfortunately won't see that. A very, very happy Joe Schmidt there. And no doubt that was, as I say, the performance of maybe one of the performances of his career. He'll look back on that in time. New Zealand 23 beat Ireland 13 in Dublin on Friday night, mate. You were there. You are still feeling the effects, you tell me. A phenomenal game for very, very different reasons to what we've just seen at Twickenham. But the thing that stood out to me, and I've popped this out on the socials, is that if you looked at the stats sheet, Ireland should have been beaten by 25 points. And so New Zealand were very, very good, and Ireland did a lot wrong, but they only lost by 10. And I'm still actually having trouble getting my head around that.
Well, there was very little flow. So both teams struggled in the first 40 to understand Nick Berry's rulings around the ruck. And there were a lot of rulings. And so what happens sometimes when you have games like that, you don't want to take too many risks because it doesn't really pay off to go into your third or sixth phase. Yep. But I think the larger issue, and it's one that sort of explains to me the English-Australian game better, is we saw Ireland versus New Zealand on a Friday night, and it was a culmination of obsession. These two teams have been obsessed with each other since Chicago, Soldier Field. And they pencil these games in long before, and they're obsessed by it. And what happens when you have a defensive coach obsessed with another person's attack is they find ways to negate them. And it ends up having very attritional battles. There's only a couple of these games between these two teams that have actually been attractive. Most of it's been like the revenge for Chicago was brutal. And they're so revenge-minded that, Rico Ioane was the one doing the haka. The whole stadium erupted every time he touched the ball. When I was walking to the stadium, there were giant banners draped saying, "Revenge is a dish served cold, best served cold." in the warm-ups, every time he was even straying close to the stands, people were saying like foul and things about his mother and his ancestors.
Wow.
It was that kind of thing. And then I gotta say, the All Blacks, for their happy, nice boy kind of image, they came in really determined to spoil the Irish party and hand them a loss on their home turf. So what happened was, it was so bitter and grim, and I thought very compelling, by the way, and interesting to watch.
Yes.
It just wasn't anything like the carnival we just watched, because it like everyone just was determined not to be the guy that lost the game. Whereas England, Australia, it was like everyone was just doing stuff, and in the end, somebody would win and somebody would lose. But this one was the other way around, and they went into oranges, and New Zealand, for the first time in the whole season, had the better adjustments. Like, they came out in second half and they really understood the ruck better. I think their penalty count went way down from that point. They kicked intelligently, and they put guys into space when they needed. It was very wet out there. It didn't look very wet, but it had been raining, kind of misty rain, for about 2 hours. So the Irish were trying to throw the ball around too much. They played too much rugby, got caught, and New Zealand just kind of waited. And then their run meters came from long, breakouts and runbacks. It wasn't designed plays that was doing that. But no, quite frankly, it was interesting to see a team that had been so obsessed kind of get figured out. And what the All Blacks did is they, if the Irish have a beautiful bicycle, the All Blacks just put sticks in those spokes and just smashed the bicycle. It came undone. They were dropping balls right and left. They were throwing behind shoulders. It was Frawley dropped one cold. I mean, you just couldn't believe what you were seeing.
They were happy, New Zealand, to go, all right, we think we know how you want to referee the breakdown here, Nick. And obviously New Zealand have had a lot of experience with Nick Berry. Ireland have had Nick Berry through Six Nations games and all that as well. So it's not like they don't know what he's like. But they almost stood back from the breakdown, not stood back from the breakdown, but you know what I mean? They almost disengaged a little bit just to let Ireland keep going over the line. And Damon McKenzie's still kicking penalty goals in the 65th minute. Look, when was the last time you can remember a New Zealand team having 7 shots at penalty goal for a game? Yeah. I can't. So, it was one try all in the end, but New Zealand was so far ahead in terms of who was the better team. Van der Fleer scored his try in the 43rd minute. I don't think Ireland looked like scoring a point after that, and they didn't, but they didn't look like they were going to. That was the big difference for me. That they're this rivalry and this whole thing that's been built up and scripted up as much as it has for the last 6 or 7 years. Ireland just didn't ask a question in the last half an hour.
Yeah, what have they been above all other teams? Ireland has risen into the top 4, then the top 3.
They've
top
been
2.
the patient one.
They've been highly coordinated, exceptionally almost machine-like connected. And I saw a team on Friday night where everyone was doing hero ball. James Lowe had to make up something for himself. Bundy Aki had to, do a powerful thing by himself. James Ryan was tackling like a demon, but none of it was connected. Ty Byrne was not connected to James Ryan, was not connected to Joe McCarthy. And in contrast, you saw the All Blacks just really play as a unit. I thought Satiti controlled himself and fit within that loose trio unit so that he brought Sam Cane along with him. And it looked better to me. Yeah,
that's actually a really good point. Satiti didn't. He was very, very good, but he didn't stand out as much as he did the previous week against England.
Yeah,
because Savia and Kane and Barrett and Tamati Williams even up front were all really, really good as well. Yeah, that was a really good performance from the pack. That's very true.
So adjustments I saw, the thing you said, which is on second off, the All Blacks did not approach the ruck with numbers, and they went after 2 or 3 rucks. They didn't go for every ruck. The second thing is when they were presenting the ball, they moved it a lot, and they tried to defeat what happened. The first off, the Irish were actually pretty good at making Ratama looked like he was putting his hand into a wood chipper machine. It was so horrible. I cannot believe he didn't break his forearms because he just kept getting smashed. And so second off, they would present, kind of do this and then put it somewhere else, kind of move it so that Van der Fleer and Byrne couldn't get it.
You can see some commentary about that too, that the ball presentation is becoming a like almost presenting it in an arc, in a moving target type thing. Yeah. And if your nine knows where that's going to be, then that's great. I reckon Roygaard starts next week, just quietly against France. I think they have to.
The things you see when you're there, that separate. One is the sound of James Lowe kicking a ball. It's brutal and almost sickening how hard it is. But the second one would be Cam Roygaard's presence. He's got that kind of presence.
Immediate impact. Yeah.
And you can see it on the field. You can see on the field once he came on, everyone felt calmer. I think his forwards did as well. So he's got a level head. He's kind of one of those old souls. He actually, when they were coming around off the match and talking to people, Cam Roygaard, he just impresses you as someone who's been there before. He's not a young kid.
Yeah, no doubt. We've got some really, really good games to look forward to next weekend. I mean, you're in Edinburgh for Scotland, South Africa on Sunday, and that's going to be a ripping game. But next weekend, all of a sudden, Ireland host Argentina, and Ireland will be under the pump. England hosts South Africa at Twickenham, and that could be anything now. France hosts New Zealand, and then obviously the Wallabies go to Cardiff as well. And as I say, they will be just carrying unheard of levels of confidence and feel good within that squad. And I'm so happy for everyone involved. I really am. It's been fantastic, mate, but I reckon we call it a wrap on the second week of the Test match post-mortem for the Northern Spring Autumn Series Tour thing, and with another very big weekend of international rugby coming at us again next weekend. I still can't believe it.
I'm happy for you and happy for all Australians who follow rugby, because it's been a long time since something this magical and fun has happened. And what made it even better to me was that, Marcus Smith and Maro Itoje did do those late game heroics, and you still won. Because I think in your heart of hearts, you were thinking, okay, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Itoje scores and I went, oh, no.
We found a way to lose again.
Missed the kick. I can take a draw from here. Missed the kick. Yeah, just incredible. But tell us what you think right here on the 8-9 Combo YouTube channel. Hit the 8-9 Combo on the socials, or you can tell Harry and I on the socials in our usual places as well. Make sure you're subscribed on the YouTube channel, that you're following on the pod platforms, wherever you tune in, and make sure you've got notifications turned on however you consume us. This is the Test match postmortem from the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. And we'll be back in your ears on Tuesday this week with the Telegraph's Charlie Morgan.
Come offload with us.
Woo!
The offload kings you are now.